When I was a kid, I think maybe what hinted at a career in composing is the fact that I discovered early on, a colleague had this, it's called a sequencer. You could basically play in a part electronically, and then it would play back what you put in. And so it was a simple setup. It was just like, it was just a keyboard, and I could play these notes, and he showed me how you could play the notes in, and then it would play back notes you just played. And to me, that was like magic. It was like I had figured out by ear how to play the Grim Grinning Ghosts Disneyland Haunted Mansion theme. And so I went through and I plugged out, I was playing it in, and then I added another part to it, boom, 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 boom. And so it's like, it's a magical experience. It's like I could play all these parts in, and it would play them back for me. And I just thought, this is like an incredible thing. It was like eye-opening to me. And of course, that's exactly what I do now when I'm working on music. It's like I'm playing these parts in, I get to hear them back, and I get to play them in one at a time. But I remember at that time, it was such an interesting experience of getting the strong feeling of like, this is so cool, and this is so fun to be able to like put in these parts. How cool is that to be able to be involved in that? So I feel extremely lucky. I'm Jason Hayes. I'm a music composer for the video game industry, and I was fortunate to be the lead composer of World of Warcraft, and I've also contributed music to their games set in the worlds of Warcraft, StarCraft, and Diablo, including some other games like Heroes of the Storm and Hearthstone. Besides that, I've also spent some time at Riot Games and also at a studio called Carbine that I helped to found, and it was owned by NCSoft. So a video game composer has to basically work in an area that's considered to be very different from film or TV. It's popular to talk about that as being a completely different animal, but I typically think of it as being something that actually it's all the same quest. You want to make something that's going to make people feel something and give an emotional response. And so whether it's for a movie or for a TV show or a game, I find that to be first and foremost, that's the main quest. I mean, I hope that I can write compelling music that helps people feel something. Beyond that, there are some specific things that happen in the game industry where it can be maybe challenging in a way that's different. In a movie, you know exactly what's going on from second to second, and it always plays the exact same way. That's a comforting thing. In a game, you don't know for sure what the player is doing. So you have to deal with this kind of moving target of not knowing whether the gamer is going through a really scary area, and you have to like make sure that things feel really freaky, or maybe they have a bit of relief because things aren't quite so panicked, or they could be making a sandwich, which means that like they're not really even paying attention to the game. So we try to find ways to really know, hopefully, what they're going through, and then we address that emotionally and hopefully accentuate the feelings that go along with the experience. So what I've learned over the years about how I approach music when I first start a project, a lot of times, especially if it's melodic, and there are sometimes we want to write a really good theme. And it's like you want to write a theme. And so if I'm going to go to try to do thematic writing, what I've learned to do is I will get away from all the gear. I'll even get away from the piano. I won't be at the keyboard. I won't be at an instrument. I'll basically just take a walk and think about the character or the situation, and I'll start singing ideas to myself. I'm not a very good singer, but I'll hum ideas or sing ideas to myself, and to try to come up with a good melody that can work well for this theme. And I've learned from experience that that's the way that I can be the most free to come up with what I hope is a good idea. And once I get that idea, I'll take that back in the studio. I have a good idea of what I want to write, and then I'll bring in all those instruments and I'll try to figure out, okay, how can I arrange this? How can I address this? With what kind of ensemble would this sound interesting? And then I'll work on all the orchestration and the arrangement part. But, I've even gone so far as to import my recording of my voice as a guide. And then I've built the arrangement around hearing my voice in there as a reminder of what's going on. That reminder will get promptly deleted because, like I said, I'm not a great singer, and this is not really made for mass consumption. I don't want anyone to hear these recordings. It's just for me, but it reminds me kind of what I was thinking. And so that's been kind of a neat way to work sometimes, is try to import that in and use that as kind of a guide. A lot of times you're working on things. I was working on things before I could even play through the areas. Like for example, there was one point where we worked on this starting zone called Elwynn Forest in World of Warcraft. Okay, it's like a classic foresty zone, and there was no game to play yet. It was just, I had a concept art piece, a beautiful picture that someone had drawn of the forest, and it had the god rays through the trees, and it was just beautiful. And so I had to try to write some music for that, and it was a very inspiring image. And so I was like, well, I can write music to this. So I wrote music for this picture, and I finished it. And then fast forward a couple weeks later on, I heard from the team that said, hey, you know what? We have a very early version of Elwynn Forest. You can walk around in it now if you want to plug in the music. I'm like, well, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I plugged in the music and loaded up the game. And, it's really neat experience because I got to see what the artist had done to bring this thing to life. And it actually felt a lot like that image of the concept art. And it was beautiful. And I remember feeling like it was so exciting to hear this area come to life, and the music was in there, and it felt like, wow, this feels really good. And that was exciting. But, fast forward a few years when the game was going to be released. And when the game was released, it turns out that Elwynn Forest was one of the starting zones. And this is an area where players are fighting these low-level mobs. And it's like chaotic. They're going around and this constant battle with these low-level creatures. And of course, I'd done this kind of peaceful, beautiful music, hopefully in the morning. And it's like, it didn't really seem appropriate because, well, you don't want to be battling all these creatures and hearing, calm music. So the most I could hope for is that it would maybe the sounds of combat would drown out my music. And then you just basically go through that. And if ever you got a break from the chaos and things were chilled out in Elwynn Forest, then you could maybe bask in the feeling of this nice, calm area. But it was an interesting experience to realize that, well, it's not exactly how I imagined Elwynn Forest when I first set out to work on that concept art, but I still like that zone and it's beautiful. And I thought that the music was good when there's not too much battle, too much chaos. One of the most important things for a young person interested in composing music for video games, you just want to make sure that you're really, really excited and passionate about music in general. I mean, to me, it's like what's kept me going, and always being interested in this job has been my love of music and discovering exciting new things that you can do with it. I mean, to me, it's a very satisfying thing to be a constant student because I feel like I'm always trying to learn new things. And it's amazing because it's such a big field that you really can learn all the time. I mean, there's always new things. And I enjoy that process very much. I get very tickled when I discover some new thing that I can use. And, if I weren't really excited about music and I was just doing it more like it's kind of a cool job, which, sometimes it's really a cool job, but I don't think it would sustain me. I think that, the love of working on music and the love of the subject of music has been a big part of sustaining my interest in this. I think as far as music education goes, it's very important to get some kind of, there's a lot of ways to translate the idea of music education. It could be a degree or a master's degree or doctorate at a university. Obviously, you're going to learn some things that way for sure, but it all could be self-study as well, and you can learn a lot on your own. Certainly, depending on the kind of music that you want to write, it can be extremely important to have a base of knowledge to work from, because a lot of people that I know that are maybe playing in bands and they might be stuck in this mode where they write the same kind of music all the time. Well, that's because they don't have a lot of exposure to a lot of different influences. And so if you get familiar with a lot of music, it gives you kind of a basis of having that kind of a more broader idea of what music can be. And it can help with your own writing for sure. So definitely you want to have a certain amount of education for sure, but there's a lot of ways to achieve that goal. I think that a lot of the education I've gotten has been listening to music, analyzing what I hear, and certainly college was part of that, but as much of that, or even more of that, has been my own self-study, because I spend so much time just trying to deconstruct how music that I think works really, really well. I try to figure out like why it works and how it works, and so that's a form of a music education, just by self-study. So if a college student wants to break into composing of video games, I would say that definitely you want to start out writing music on your own and getting that experience. No time like the present to start doing that. And, by doing, you're going to get better. It's just a natural part of the process. You're going to basically improve through the experience of doing it. What I oftentimes say is that, there's certain events that take place that are around video game development, and it's very good to be there. You can meet people in the industry and learn more about kind of how to get involved. A really good one is the Game Developers Conference. That's one that takes place every year in San Francisco. So it's happening this coming year in San Francisco and in March. And so it's usually, like the February, March timeframe. And that's a fantastic environment where people get together from all over the world to trade ideas about game development. And certainly, if you want to get involved as a composer, you can definitely find everyone you want to meet that working in the industry, probably at an event like that. And you can hand out your music on maybe flash USB card or something. And plus, hand out a lot of business cards and shake a lot of hands and, and basically be someone who makes an impression as being a friendly, approachable person, so that, later on, when you hit them up after the event, asking them if you can send them your music, they maybe remember you as someone who is, friendly, and they wouldn't mind potentially working with, and they'll give you a chance by listening to your music. So I think it's a very good thing to get involved with events like that. A good method for some people to get involved in the industry is to, let's say you're just out of college. You can get a job potentially like at a company like Blizzard. And it may not be as a composer, right? It might just be like you're there as someone in the QA, the quality assurance team that tests the games to kind of like make sure they're bug-free before they're released. Well, that's not what you want to do, right? You want to maybe write music for games. But if you're inside the walls of a company, you're in a much better position than just, trying to send demos in the mail, trying to send letters in the mail. Obviously, a company like Blizzard has lots of people that are wanting to hit them up and submit things. And so, you may never get your stuff heard that way. So it's a difficult situation to try to approach in that kind of way. So if you can get a job at the company in some context, whether it be QA or if you've got the skills for it, maybe, if you're great with computers, maybe an IT position. Or for a while at Blizzard, there was a dungeon master, kind of a DM position, where you could basically you act kind of like a policeman in a way that are patrolling the game, like World of Warcraft, and you're helping out players and this kind of thing. And so any kind of way that you can get involved at the company. You can definitely, hopefully then meet people and say, hey, you know what? Hopefully I'm impressing you with my job that I'm doing, and I care first and foremost about that job I'm doing. But what I really want to do, I want to work toward being able to write music for games, and here's some things that I've been doing. And so you make some friends and you get people to listen to your material. And, when you're actually at a company, it's much more easy to start those conversations than trying to send some anonymous mail to a company, for sure. There's a lot of opportunity. And, people don't always think about all the opportunity that's out there. It's huge now because you've got this wonderful space of mobile games, games for iPhone, Android. It's like there's so much content being done, and you get to come in and try to do this really wonderful role to try to make the emotional context for what people are experiencing. It's never been dull. It's always thrilling. And I feel so lucky because a lot of people pour a lot of talent and heart into these games, and that's wonderful. And then after that, you have this super passionate audience of gamers that just cannot wait to play these things. And it's wonderful to be able to be a part of their experience in a way that you get to have an important role in helping bring it to life for them. So that definitely is a thing that's awesome about the video game industry.